welcome to this week's episode of Tired and Thriving, a podcast recognizing just how tired and exhausted we all are while discussing ways to still thrive. Whether it's something big like a day trip to a different county or something small like sending a meme to a friend, we're here to help each other thrive. I'm your host, Samantha Gray, and this week's guest is Elinor Bawnik. Elinor is a therapist who specializes in working with OCD and anxiety disorders and personality disorders. Thank you for talking with me, Elinor.
Hi.
Is there anything else about your profession that you wish to disclose?
So the title is marriage and family therapist. So that's more obviously individual work. I do couples as well. Rarely I do some families. I have a lot of particulars around those. But those are the two specialties, the personality, borderline personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, and all the way to the other side. Very unrelated, but sometimes overlapping, OCD, which a lot of people have a lot of misconceptions about, but anxiety disorders, yeah.
Oh, what kind of misconceptions about OCD do people have?
I think as much as, let's just fucking jump into all this. I think with the beautiful movement that we've had to just accept and understand and be more aware of mental health issues is great. And it has become such a colloquial term of oh my God, I'm so OCD. I have to wash my hands when I come home or whatever it is. It's a lot of things have been kind of downplayed where OCD can be so debilitating and it does ruin people's lives. So I think to really understand and see it, and there's so many different subtypes of it and stuff like that, to really understand it's not just I wash my hands a lot.
Yeah.
And to really understand what that looks like, it's very different.
Is there an example you can say where OCD can be debilitating or?
For example, there are some people, this is a very common type of OCD. It's a fear of harm of others. So for instance, some people might have a fear of hit and run. So imagine you live in LA and you can't drive because if you get in your car and you drive over any bump, which in LA is quite common.
Yes.
Some people might, for instance, if they go over a bump, they might stop, get out of the car, check and see if they hit someone, drive around several times to see if they hit someone, check the newspapers and the news to see if anyone was reporting a hit and run, not be able to leave their house after that from the fear and the guilt and the shame around it. So that's one example of many.
Does that come from their past, or is that something that's, hereditary or?
I mean, for most mental health issues, there's a bit of both, right? The nature and nurture kind of thing.
Yeah.
OCD in general, we see a lot of times when there's families with a lot of criticism or there's some kind of perfectionism kind of ideals in the family. Not always. Can be just a lack of stability. It can be many different things. But we learn a lot of times, even from a young age, if I can take control of certain things by actions, by thoughts, there's this sense of safety that comes with it. There's a little bit of relief from the anxiety of the everyday whatever.
Yeah.
And that anxiety is very short-lived. So that's why we have both obsessions of the thoughts around it and what ifs and all those kind of things. And then it comes into the compulsions, which is either thoughts or actions to reduce the intensity of the anxiety around those intrusive thoughts.
Oh.
And it's so short-lived that it becomes this very vicious cycle. And to break it, a lot of times we'll do exposures, which is, for instance, I had a client where I was in the back of the car with a blindfold on and headphones, and he's just driving around, and I kept saying things like, "Did you feel that?" Oh my God. So fun experiences. Was my favorite. My favorite things to do is the tortures that we put people through so they can be better in life and, start to come away from it. It's amazing.
When you do exposure therapy, is that does it have to be really dramatic or
no?
Okay.
Exposure therapy, it's exposure and response prevention.
Yeah.
So it can be, usually it's very gradual. That's way far down the line. You're not immediately going to do that. Sometimes it's just thinking about it. That could be an exposure. Or talking about it can be an exposure. So when you do exposures, you start obviously a lot lower in a scale of how intense the fear is.
Yeah.
But You get really creative, which is great. But the whole point of it is not only to expose them to it, but to prevent the response that usually would come. So in that case, with the hit and run fears, right? So it's, okay, we just drove over a bump. We're not going to drive around again. We're going to sit with this idea that maybe we hit someone. As tough as it is, as like torturous as it is, we're just going to sit here and sit with that anxiety until it starts to go down.
Yeah.
And the whole point of it is there's this idea of habituation, kind of like, I don't know if I'm sure it's happened to you. You like walk into a room and there's a smell and you're like, oh, what is that? That smells amazing. Is it a candle? Is it... But after a while you get to, you're in the room for a while. You don't notice it anymore.
Yeah. That's
habituation. We do it naturally. It's part of the process that our body that has to happen. Or like, imagine if you didn't. You'd just be noticing that's complete ADHD, right? Because it's like, oh, there's a color. Oh, what's the smell?
Yeah.
Like you're all over the place. So for habituation to happen, we need to expose ourselves to it and just be in it. And eventually it does go down, as long as, again, there's more to it, of course, but, I don't try it at home to some level, but don't like ask a professional, of course, before you get into something like that. But it's those exposures that you give yourself or that you're doing and you get as homework and together with your therapist. And to prevent that extra part, that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Not just pushing yourself to do scary things, great, but what do you do about it afterwards?
Yeah. I kind of I asked that too because I remember, I think it was Maury that did exposure therapy on people.
That was different. That was like flooding, which is, I call it flooding. I remember there was the episode with the pickles.
Yeah, that's exactly the one I'm thinking of.
That was different because it was like, think of like how stressful it is to be on TV and you're terrified of this weird ass thing and then they bring you and like try to like pour pickles onto you. Like that is...
Yeah, put you in a room with pickles. That's like strictly pickles. Oh my gosh. I think it was like pickles. The pickles were like hanging down from the walls and shit. You're like, wow.
That's like a house of horrors for this person. Kind of like that, but not. Not at all.
I'm glad to know this is this is a nicer version of exposure therapy.
I mean, of course I enjoy we enjoy torturing. No, I'm kidding. But it's for the best. It really is.
Yeah.
You see the results. It's like, it's amazing that where you can get to.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad we dived into that so fast. But
so fun. Let's
go back to how and when you decided to become a therapist, and what was that journey like for you?
Oof. Let's say, okay, for me, there were many periods in my life where I was like, fuck this, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
It was, my mom is actually in the field as well.
Oh.
She did more research-based. Like, she worked on research actually for this antipsychotic medication called Risperdal. I think that's what they call it in English. She was working on studies for that, as in, she would go to hospitals and, get research data and things like that. She wasn't ever treating anybody, so she's not that kind of therapist. So it was, always around. It was in the house. We would volunteer sometimes on the weekends when I was younger at, this place that had, somewhat functioning, mental health issues. Anyway, so we did all, it was, a pancake breakfast or something with people who had severe, PTSD and psychosis and stuff like that. But everything was very safe, of course, but I always had introduction into this world and interests and in humans in general, I think. So it just, I don't know, it opened up that space for me. I was like, this is what I need to do. I tried to do marine biology, did not work out for me. Apparently it's not being on a yacht and just drinking and taking pictures of sharks. I did not know that.
Oh, that's so unfortunate. Aw.
Dream. But no, but I'm glad I went into this and I love it. And so, yeah.
So since you mentioned that you also do relationship therapy, what can you tell me about that? Is there anything you want to
Well, couples therapy in general, it's very, very different from individual. So some people might come in and they think that they're going to go to couples therapy to prove to their partner that they're wrong. That is not the point. Couples therapist is going to be unbiased. They're going to call both of you out on your shit, which is amazing. And really one of the biggest things is, how do you communicate? Because a lot of times it's not about the dishes, and it's not about where you're going to be for a holiday, and it's not about really any of those mundane things. It's how do we communicate and hold space for each other and hear each other in that? How do we accept each other through time, as we're making changes, as we're growing as people, how do we still hold that space? How do we rekindle things? How do we keep the interest alive, the sex alive, the adventure, but also find safety in the mundane and the structure? So you want to hold both. And that's what people can learn from going to couples therapy versus again, not to have someone who's a mascot, which I've had some situations like that where people are just going at it and I'm like, are you done? Did that help? Did anyone listen to anybody? No.
Yeah.
That's not going to be helpful. And you can do that on your own. You don't need a therapist for that.
Yeah.
If you want to make changes to how you're talking to one another, that's what couples therapy can be helpful for. And it's actually pretty nice. Recently, I've had a few couples that they're just dating still, and they're thinking of marriage or engagement. So they're coming to a therapist before they do that, which is kind of awesome. Which I don't think that's more familiar in like religious communities.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of cool that people are doing that.
Definitely. That was something I was just going to ask. Have you been getting a lot of people that are just starting a relationship, people who are married, like already super invested in a relationship? Like, what kind of people come up to you relationship-wise?
I've had definitely a mix of those, like I said, before marriage, before engagement, but also at the same time, I've had people who are kind of maybe at the end of their relationship and either not saying that it's too late, but they feel like this is a last resort.
Yeah.
They feel like this is it, right? And obviously within 1 to 3 sessions, I'm not going to fix anything. We're not going to, we're not going to relearn the wheel or whatever. We're not going to create fire for the first time.
Yeah.
But, it does take time. But yeah, I see a mix. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times when people come to therapy, it's because they want it to work, which is what's great.
That's nice.
Yeah, it's one of the first questions I ask, like, do you want this to work? Mm-hmm. Sometimes that happens, like one partner just gets kind of like pulled into it and they're like, not really. I'm like, let's talk about that. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the breakup.
Yeah.
What that means, why people are afraid. It's scary.
Yeah. Do you feel like a lot of those relationships are not salvageable, but do you feel that people are able to work through their issues through therapy or?
Yeah. And it really, so I can't really say like statistics wise, right?
Yeah.
It depends when you finally reach out for help. Mm-hmm. It depends if you want that help, really. Again, do you want to just have the therapist prove that you're right and that you've always been right forever and about everything?
Yeah.
Or do you actually want to be able to create some changes, which means sometimes putting our ego aside a little bit, admitting wrong, admitting our part, even in things that would be, you wouldn't think so, like, for instance, cheating, right? Mm-hmm. There's a cheater and there's a cheaty, and that's it. And it's very black and white. But people forget to ask the why. Why did they cheat? What happened? How did we get here? What was my part in the disconnection between us? Yeah. And it's really difficult because you just got cheated on. Fuck that, right? Mm-hmm. But being able to manage that anger and being able to, for the person who cheated, to feel the shame and show regret and remorse, that is a big part of it. And not everyone is willing to go through all that.
Yeah.
So again, it's how much are you really willing to stay in the relationship? And it does mean that emotional pain and the discussions that might come up and talking through it, and it's work.
Yeah.
Just like anything that's worth saving,
Mm-hmm. Do you ever feel that your clients who see you individually ever come up to you to say, hey, I also want to do relationship therapy with like my partner?
Yeah, I've had a lot of things with overlap. So at least for myself, I know that if I'm seeing a couple and they eventually decide to disband or they want to see me individually, that's great, but I can't do both. Mm-hmm. It can be also very kind of like off-putting if you're individual go to a couple setting, just because imagine kind of like having a friend who's on your side and all of a sudden they're taking both sides and you're like, hello, like, you're my therapist. What do you say? What do you mean they're right? Or what do you mean they're saying this thing and I feel like you're on their side? There's no sides in the couples therapy. Mm-hmm. It's the couple together as a unit against the problem versus one against the other. So I usually don't go individual to couple because it's not going to feel right. That connection can be, it can feel like a betrayal.
Yeah.
Right. Versus like, of course I'm always on your side to some extent. I'm going to call you out on your bullshit, but of course I'm on your side.
Yeah.
And it can feel like I'm not in the couple. So I don't go that way. Yeah.
I think that's like important for people to hear. Yeah.
Every therapist is different. That's how I see the
Yeah.
relationship. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. I don't know. Is there anything else about family therapy that you feel like is probably relevant to hear about?
With family therapy,
or relationship therapy too. Or yeah, maybe we haven't even touched family therapy. Yeah, let's hear about family therapy.
family therapy is so different. It's like conducting a symphony. You need to really, from my end of things, is really hold space for each person individually and give voice to people who don't have one, and listen to the people who aren't heard. So there's a lot of moving parts, but I think a lot of therapists struggle, I would say, or are challenged when, for instance, there's usually someone who's the identified patient. It's like, this is the problem that we're here for. And again, it's that space of, are you willing to see what your part is in this? A lot of times people will be like, okay, we want to do family therapy so you can fix this person.
Yeah.
And that's not what we do.
Yeah.
So it's that same place of, I'm not going to fix your child. I'm not going to fix you. This is going to be a lot of changing the dynamic and how we see things. And with the family, there's so many more moving parts.
Yeah.
So it really is, it's super fun. It's super fun. There's a lot more you can do with, like, for instance, I've had situations where I've moved people in the room of, in like, you sit next to this person, you sit next to this person, and kind of separate. For instance, there's something called triangulation, where let's say a lot of times it happens with two parents and a child.
Yeah.
And instead of dealing with their issues, they become either very focused and interested on the kid, or they use the kid kind of as part of the argument. So we're not going to talk about the fact that we're not having sex. We're going to say like, oh, well, you're too much with the child, but he needs me. Right? So it's not about you versus your wife, your husband, or your partner. It's, well, now it's about the kid, and the kid is the problem. So in that kind of like dynamic, it's separating that and creating that hierarchy of like, nope, that has nothing to do with this, and let's talk about sex or whatever it is that is not on the table.
Yeah.
So again, it can be very, it's so fun and it's so creative, and like to see it in that different way is, but I'm very picky about who I take, unfortunately.
Oh, for families?
Yeah. Again, I'm not going to fix anybody, right? So if I'm seeing families, for instance, when there's a minor involved, I do require that both parents, either they are in couples therapy or individual, and that I'm able to be in touch with their therapist. And I remember I had someone who called, and they're like, you can't make us do that. And I was like, you're right, but you don't have to be with me.
Yeah.
That's totally fine. Don't.
You're making that choice. I can make this choice.
Yep, this is my choice. They did not like that. They didn't call me back. But that's okay.
Yeah. I had a question. Okay. So say, I feel like there's so many people that try therapy and get like a very bad experience, whether like a therapist is very biased or just XYZ of how a therapist can not be very good. Do you think there's like advice, or do you feel like there's any suggestion or anything you can say that would, help people feel comfortable to come back to therapy, or like,
I think that's a really great question. I even tell my new clients, if you are not feeling a connection with me between 1 to 3 sessions, you need to leave and find someone else. And I'll help them do that. Like, I got referrals. It's fine.
Yeah.
Tell me what you didn't like. We'll get you to someone new. But for someone who's looking for, especially after you've had a negative experience, it can be really hard. Even if you had a great experience, to start over for whatever reason is so difficult, because like now I have to go over all this shit again. And So one thing, if you're going to a new therapist, you can always sign a release form for your new therapist to talk to your old therapist. So feel free to do that. And that way you don't have to like restart your whole story. They still might ask for it in your own words, but at least they'll have some background. Another thing is ask questions. This is your treatment. The therapist is there, you know, they have their tools, they have their abilities, they have themselves as the tool itself, but they're limited to that. You're the one who brings the goals to the session. You're the one who, this is your world. So you're a big player in this. I think of therapy very much as a collaboration. So if that works for you, great. If you want a therapist who's going to sit back and listen, great. But then we need to communicate that. And that can be hard. So asking questions of what is therapy like with you? What are the modalities you use, as in what types of therapies? For instance, is it more psychodynamic, like talk therapy of I'm going to tell you whatever I'm thinking, my dreams, going into analysis of my past, things that remind me, you know, my parents, my siblings, versus behavioral. Behavioral talks a lot more about skills on like how I can manage my day-to-day and also identify what are the patterns of my behaviors and what's not working for me. So how can I cope with, I don't know, I don't want to get up in the morning, or I hate my job, right? How do I deal with this person that I don't know how to talk to? Those are skills that can be used versus just kind of talking about it. So think about where you are and what you prefer, or even saying like, which one do you do? I don't know what that's like. Another thing can be asking your therapist in general, like if you want something more, like I want a lot more validation. I want a lot more comfort. I want a lot more feeling of safety. How do I create that in the room? So that might be something that you talk about, because for everyone it's going to be really different. So I guess the main thing is, which might be the whole reason you're going to therapy, but communicate what you need, right? Say it. And if your therapist for some reason is insulted, like if you tell them, hey, you're not doing this, or I need more of this, then maybe that's not the therapist for you. That's okay. And it's okay to break up with a therapist. It's okay to fire them. It's okay to move on. And sometimes a therapist will be great for you at one period of time and maybe not for another. You might go back to the same one and remember that they were great, but then you're a different person now. So, and that's okay. So not taking it too personally as well. If, you know, if you're afraid to say something, like they can handle it. Period. They should be able to handle it. It's not personal. It's about what you need.
And I think that's like really important to reiterate. It's what you need. You don't have to worry about what they're feeling.
Exactly.
This
is the one place where you never have to think about what they're feeling. It's okay.
I mean, don't abuse them or anything like.
No, that's a whole other thing.
But just know when you you can say no and just like step away.
Definitely.
Yeah,
at any point. Oh, and if you can, I tell this to my clients too, like look them up online. Look them up. They probably have a website. They probably have some kind of blurb about themselves. Maybe you see a picture. If you can't look at that face once a week, don't choose them. Like, it'll be annoying, you know? Pick someone that you feel connected to. Pick someone within your same culture or language that you express yourself in. Like if English is your second language, you might want to find someone who speaks your first language, because that's how you express your emotions more fluidly. Choose someone who has similarities to you that you feel comfortable with, whatever. And of course, unfortunately, if you do go through insurance, always remember that you can choose to change them. It just might take time. It's not an easy system to work with.
Do you recommend, because what if a therapist is being biased or bad or whatever, but you as a person don't know that that's happening? Would you recommend someone like telling a friend or being like, hey, my therapist said this to me. Do you think that's weird? Or
it's always okay to talk to your friends about things. What do you mean by if they don't know? Like,
I don't know. I guess like even in a relationship, if someone's being abusive or something, sometimes people feel like, oh, because it's a relationship. Or I feel like even with therapy, some people might think, oh, this is supposed to be confidential. Like I shouldn't be telling other people about this.
That's a good point. The confidentiality is from the therapist's side. You are a client. This is your information. You can tell whoever you want, whatever you want. The things that happen in the therapy room, that's up to you. But the confidentiality is from the therapist. As in, they are legally and morally bound to not talk about anything you talk about in sessions, unless, of course, like I said, limitations of safety.
Yeah.
Right? If harm to self, harm to others, if they hear about any kind of abuse, right, for children or elderly, that's when they need to break that confidentiality. Also with insurance a little bit, but that's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
But you get to talk about whatever you want to talk about. It's your relationship. It's you're literally paying for this service, right? To have someone to hold that space for you, but you can talk to whoever you want. Definitely. Okay. Yeah, tell a friend, like, hey, I think my therapist is biased. They'll probably say, get a new therapist. Or talk about it with your therapist too, by the way. Feel free to do that. And depending on how they react, maybe that'll help you make a decision.
Yeah.
Say like, hey, I don't like that you said that. I've had those conversations with my therapist of like, I can't believe you said that to me. And they're like, was I wrong? And I was like, no, but still. That's okay. It's okay to challenge them. It's okay to do that, to challenge anyone, but especially in therapy because it's your relationship.
Yeah. Does being a therapist ever become draining even if you enjoy what you do? Yeah,
definitely. There's some sessions that are more challenging or we talk about certain things. Like I'm still human, you know, like if you have a therapist, they're human. Sometimes they have off days. Sometimes they're distracted by whatever's going on in their life, but also, I guess just in a general sense, there's some things that either you feel similarity or you're going through similar things with your client, or it's just because of the symptoms themselves can be challenging. Like with personality disorders, there's a lot of different things that can come up. For instance, in general, personality disorders are something that a lot of therapists will stay away from. They're like, I don't deal with that. Because it can be really challenging in the room. A lot of stuff comes up. There's a lot of reactivity. There's a lot of back and forth. So that can be draining. But I have my own therapist for that. And
I was going to ask,
I take care of myself.
Usual therapists have their own therapist?
The ones I know do. The ones I trust, they have their own therapy for the most part. I mean, I don't know how people don't. Like, I need it. It's so fucking helpful.
Yeah.
But, which as one of my clients said, that's such a pyramid scheme. But I was like, kind of.
Like coming to you.
Because they're like, maybe I'll be a therapist. I'm like, do it. And they're like, what?
Like, oh yeah, they were like expecting that reaction out of you to be like, no, don't go into this. It's just for me.
No, I mean, why not? Kind of, because like mental health affects everything and everyone, and the ups and downs of life, and understanding yourself is so amazing and important.
Yeah.
So,
and I really love that for especially recent generations. More and more people go to therapy, and that stigma, which sucks that it's still rampant, but the stigma that therapy is, you know, not good, or what is it,
it's
like
only for crazy people.
Yeah, a pyramid scheme. Like something has to be severely wrong with you.
Yeah. It's not. That's another thing. Like therapy doesn't fix everything.
That's
you
right.
have to want to like learn about yourself.
Do the work.
Yeah, because like you can go and it's, you know, it's like going to the gym. You could stand in a gym. It doesn't mean you're going to lose weight. You have to like actually get on a machine and do something.
Yeah,
you know?
That's true. Yeah, I think that's this maybe secondary misconception that people think, oh, therapy, I go to therapy and I'm fixed.
Yeah.
It's like, oh no, you get tools to fix yourself.
Yeah. Hopefully. I tell my clients, you know, the point for me as a therapist is to become obsolete. The whole point is for you to learn what you need to learn and to take that and move forward. So for me, it's not everybody, every therapist is different, but for me to be in therapy forever is not ideal. If you need, yes, it could take some time, you know, average, I think for behavioral therapies is usually like a year or two, something like that on average. Some people need more, some people need less. And then again, you want to add in a lot of shit is happening. Like whether it's the aftermath of COVID or wars in the world or whatever it is that's going on in your life, like things happen. So then again, it comes up of like, okay, maybe I still want to continue. Maybe I still want to talk about these things. Maybe old wounds are getting opened up again or whatever it is. So hence the pyramid scheme, you know?
Yeah.
It goes on forever. You can analyze yourself forever.
Yeah. Do you think there's other misconceptions about therapy that people have that you can think of?
I think one of the biggest things, I even say this when I first start therapy with someone, one of the risks of starting therapy is you will feel things possibly that are uncomfortable. You'll talk about things that are uncomfortable, hopefully, right?
Yeah.
If you allow yourself to open up that much. You'll learn things about yourself that maybe you didn't know. And these things can be painful, like emotionally painful. You might see yourself and others differently. Like learning more about yourself and disconnecting from a friend who no longer serves you, or from a parent, or from a sibling. These things happen. Or the opposite, maybe reconnecting with people who you see in a different light, or making different types of friendships and connections in your life. So people forget that, like, change happens. We're not static. There's going to be some kind of shift in yourself, especially if you're doing like research into yourself and your past and understanding things. Like, you're going to get some insights. You're going to get to acknowledge certain things that maybe you didn't before, and you change. So we don't know which direction you're going to change.
Yeah.
That's up to the person. That's, I think, what makes my job so interesting. Everyone is so different. Every client I have, I love them so much in different ways because they're so unique, and it might be the same problems again and again, or the same issues or the same skills, but you're giving it to them and you're talking about these things in such a different way. So it's so creative.
Do you ever feel like somebody has changed in a way that you're like, ooh, oh no?
Yes. However, there's totally. But there's also, I can see from knowing them why they went that direction and which things are not being addressed that led them that way. And who am I to say which direction they needed to go?
Yeah.
Right? I see things according to what they're giving me, because that's all the information I have. Right? Yeah. Someone could be completely lying about their life. It doesn't matter. This is what I get. But we chose to lie in this way, or we chose to go in this direction. And now that's where we can continue to work from. So if someone changes in a way that I'm not a fan of, that's not my place.
Yeah.
Because it's all about the client. And I think that's what people forget it's such it's a unique relationship.
Yeah.
It's not like with a friend. A friend has their good days and their bad days. You come to them and sometimes you're like, oh my God, this happened. They're like, what? Me too. Let me talk about my shit.
Yeah.
Therapist, it's not about them. It's a one-sided relationship where you're not judged. You can say anything you want, besides, limitations of like confidentiality stuff like safety or whatever.
Of course.
But you say whatever you want. It's your space and you get to talk, and someone listens to you the entire fucking time, which is such a relief.
Yeah.
Because everyone has their stupid opinions and you're like, why do I have to listen to this? Like, this is your space. So it's a little bit of a vacation for some.
Yeah. I love that.
Don't we all want to just be listened to,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, would you say, okay, one of my questions was, what do you feel is the hardest part of being in this profession? Do you feel like any of those answers that you said before answered that, or?
No. Okay. Let me.
Because I already feel like, those are like, feels pretty hard.
No, it's great. I mean, okay, so I think the hardest part is I think we have a long way to go in the way we address mental health and the system. As someone who I worked in high schools, I worked in programs, I worked in hospitals. There's so many issues that are there, whether it's like, unfortunately, so many issues with insurance, right?
Yeah.
Insurance is like, great, you totally need therapy. We're going to give you one time a month for 3 months. Like, some ridiculous thing like that. Obviously, I'm exaggerating, but there's just, the system is not very supportive of mental health. There's not a lot of understanding. In LA, we have obviously the, mental health / homelessness crisis that is very tied to one another.
Yeah.
You can see from the system, they don't understand what's going on. It's not realistic. So a lot of good therapists, unfortunately, are not within the system. They don't take insurance. It's hard.
Yeah.
Having good mental health is a middle class issue. Not even rich, because then You can just throw money at it and it goes away. Apparently, that's something else.
Also, I don't know. I shouldn't say anything.
Oh.
No, I was like gonna criticize the rich, but you know what? Let's
We'll save it for another time.
Save it for another time. I'll like take that out.
If you want to know, transfer money to the podcast.
Yeah, let me become rich, and then let's see how that.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'll tell you guys.
As one of you, as I talk from my new mansion.
After
Just invite
so
me.
funny.
I want to use your pool.
Oh yeah, I'm like. My therapy is inviting you to just use my pool.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's all it is. Pool therapy. That sounds lovely.
And I'll just like talk at you and you could just enjoy yourself. and then you leave.
Where do I sign up? I love this. Actually, we were talking about that. That sounds like some relationships.
Oh
just
my
talk
God.
at me
Yeah.
and then I leave.
Oh boy. After a hard day's work.
Moving on.
Moving on. After a hard day's work, is there anything in particular that helps you thrive day to day?
Well, I have my dog, Meshi. She's the cutest. She gets me out of the house at least, 3-4 times a day.
Do you work from home?
I do.
Oh, okay.
Everything is virtual right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same with my therapist.
Yeah. I want to get an office, but it just doesn't make sense right now. Soon.
Yeah.
But yeah, she gets me out of the house several times a day. I'm trying to get more and more into my hobbies and like read a lot more and play video games and go and be active. And I have a few friends that like I'll go on hikes with them. What else? Just like working out, going and searching for people with pools. No, I'm kidding. Being in a pool. Yeah, I'm doing a lot more with my body now that like is very, very helpful because we hold so much pain and frustration and anxiety. Like we hold it in. So for me, it's like my shoulders, my back. So it's doing a lot more like just stretches or like cooking, but like things that can help me in my body. That has been so helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a goal you're working towards with your career in therapy?
I have a few things in mind. I'm not going to get too much in detail yet because it's still in the precipice, but I am taking some courses for, I do want to at some point be a supervisor for other therapists. And that is going to be so fulfilling. I hope I can do a lot more by passing on my knowledge. I had some amazing supervisors, but unfortunately mostly not so amazing.
Yeah.
And the ones that were like, they changed my life. They really like, they made me the therapist I am today, and they made me see things in a different way and check myself in different ways and really like be a better version of myself as a therapist and in general.
Oh, wow.
Because it's so tied, right? Because being a therapist, you are the tool in the room. You're the person, you're the object that is being sold, right? The way you talk, the way you treat someone, the way the methods you use, the skills you use, the worldview, like that's what you're selling basically.
Yeah.
So having a good supervisor is so important. It's like the make or all end all, whatever, however you say that. It's everything. Kind of like, in general, like who your teacher is it you yourself doing it and in front of, watching YouTube videos or whatever, teaching yourself, that's one thing. But if you have a really good mentor, you have a really good supervisor, in this, you have to have one.
Yeah.
Then that's going to change a lot. It really tests you. Because, like, what are you going to... You can't be like, no, I don't agree. Like, no, it's right in front of us. Here's examples, right? So, yeah, I want to do that and hopefully get a few people and kind of grow the business, grow and have more clientele. We'll see. Yeah. And I get an office one day.
Yes. How do you feel about, like, virtual versus in person?
Oof. This is... there's pros and cons to both. I definitely miss in person. There's so much information and more of that connection that you make in person. I mean, in general, right? If you're talking to someone over the phone, there's so many things that could be happening around you, distractions or whatever. And obviously you're adding the video of like a Zoom, or because that's what I use. Like it's a Zoom call, right?
Yeah.
So all I see is a person's torso. I don't know what's off screen. I don't know if there's something going on. I don't know if they're shaking their leg under the table, right? All these things that are very important, like body cues are so important for the work I do.
Yeah.
Where someone is sitting in a room. How someone's saying, like things like that, we look at that. We look at everything.
Oh, wow.
Where you're sitting on the couch that day, right? That's something that might come up of like, are you sitting very, very far away from me? Are you sitting closer to me? Are you fidgeting? Those are things that we look at. So when it's not in person, I'm losing a lot of information. So I do try to ask more and check in more, where in person I wouldn't have to do that. But on the other hand, it's so great for so many people that they're busy and they can't drive that far and they're saving money because of the gas and, parking or whatever it is, the situation. Some people, because again, OCD and anxiety disorders, that might be part of their anxiety of like, oh my God, I can't even imagine to drive out to this area of the city and park, which gives a lot of us so much anxiety in general. Yeah. Is there parking, right? So these little things that can be such a big difference. So I do miss it. I really do. Mm-hmm. And I have a lot of fidget toys that I would usually use in the therapy sessions. And now I just use it for myself. But, it's fine.
Oh, what kind of fidget toys?
Oof, I have everything. And I'm trying new ones. I have fidget cube, fidget rings, fidget. There's obviously spinners, which is like such a classic.
Yeah.
There's the ones that you pop like the
buttons.
Yeah, the buttons, like the bubble wrap ones that are like fake bubble wrap because it's. There are all kinds of like different rings that connect. There's one that has little suction cups that you can like press on. There's so many.
Oh my gosh.
It's never ending. So like I buy them once in a blue moon. I'll show you if you want. I have my fidget stuff. I'll show you later.
Yeah.
You can like when I had my when I was in person, I have this bowl of different fidget toys, and I would tell them, okay, like put your hand in and pick one at random, whatever feels the best, and that's the one they would play with. Because it's more of, I like using a lot of game and irreverence in my therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of humor. Yeah.
Do you have any side projects you do on the side? Because I know you're a bit of a spiritual and creative person yourself.
Mm-hmm. I am.
Is that something you want to talk about?
Yeah, definitely. So for my own creativity, I definitely am trying to learn poi, actually.
What's poi?
In like raves, they'll be like, it's a string with a ball at the end and you do all kinds of like dances with it.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to teach myself poi. It's not going very well, but there's things like that. But yeah, I really love using tarot. I use it more, I would say, in a therapeutic sense. Very rarely, it depends on the client, of course. I would sometimes bring it in and open a card and we talk about it, but I don't see it as any kind of future telling for myself. I see it more as what is coming up for you? What do you see in the cards? How do we identify what the cards represent and tie it back to you and what comes up? Mm-hmm. And I have different ones, whether it's like actual, based on the original kind of arcana, and all those. I have other ones, the like more oracle cards, whatever I feel kind of matches. I have a bunch of them. So it's not only amazing to kind of collect them, but also to match it to the different person and to be able to use it in that sense of what's coming up, and kind of like Rorschach, if you think about it, the ink blot tots, right? So it's what's coming up. What do you see? What does that mean for you? So obviously it's a lot more intricate and beautiful because the cards are so amazing, and really trying to do that and bring that kind of space of spirituality to myself, of introspection and having a little bit of I would say to do it more of a habit, because again, it's that space in general of I'm being mindful to myself and where I'm at in the world, to what's coming up for me, what I'm bringing into the room or to the cards. So in general, I think finding mindfulness in all kinds of things is so important, and that's one of my ways.
Aw, so pretty.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm also able to, these succulents are finally thriving for the first time ever. I haven't killed them. I don't know how I did it, but
They look beautiful.
They apparently, I didn't know this, but plants need water sometimes.
Oh.
And that was a big change for me.
Yeah.
They like continue to need it, not just once. So
They I think
it's been a big change.
yeah, they thrive a little bit on water.
A little bit.
Just a little bit.
Oh,
I don't know.
so terrible. I'm sorry to all the plants I killed.
Then you're like, why?
I have no idea.
Oh, but then they're so fickle because then they're like, you can't overwater them either.
Oh, don't even. I know. I've done that too. Tried to grow peppers once and it just didn't happen.
Oh, shit.
It was really bad.
Yeah.
I feel so terrible for them.
I know.
My poor plants that I kill.
And it's crazy too because it's like it's not only water or overwatering, it's also like how much light they have and how much air they have. It's
I
like
didn't even think about that.
yeah, because my last place was very terrible with light. So all the like 2 places ago that I lived at, my plants were flourishing.
Do you
They
see
were
how many
so
fake
beautiful.
plants I have? They grow way better. They don't make any issues. These needy plants.
They don't need anything.
No. Nothing.
But yeah, so my last place did not have very good light and like all my plants died, and I'm finally feeling comfortable buying plants again because my new place actually has like some good lighting.
I would love to do that, but I don't think I have no. Right now, bullet journaling, also doing those kind of things, like for me is very fun and like creative.
Oh, nice.
So that's been, whether it's like different lists of things or just like my favorites and like little drawings that I'll do. So I try to do some of that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything recently or in the past couple years that you would say breathed life back into you? Anything that's been inspiring you?
Ooh, that's a good question. Say it one more time.
It was so good. You need to listen to it again.
I need to internalize it.
Yeah. Is there anything recently or in the past couple years that you would say has been inspiring or brought passion back to you?
Ooh, I would say that I think in general, I've had a lot of changes in the last few months, year. I've shared this. I don't mind actually saying this because I've shared this with some of my clients. I'm recently getting divorced, and having that opportunity to, first of all, like a very amicable ending, like everything's great on that aspect. But being able to make a shift and to identify, kind of like reassess the relationships in my life and seeing what works, what doesn't, who am I now versus who was I when I entered the relationship, who's like very different person. And also to see myself in a different light, to be able to learn who I am. It's like quite a journey. Like, who am I without this relationship? Who am I on my own? Who am I alone? Like, what that means.
Yeah.
And it's both been motivating and eye-opening and obviously difficult many times, but that has allowed me to reassess other things in my life. So it's kind of like a ripple effect to other things, which is great. And also, I've had recently an aunt of mine who passed away, and she's so amazing, a great aunt. She was amazing. Hannah Eschel. She was an artist. She wore purple all the time.
Oh,
Amazing woman. She has I think a book about her as well. I think she called it Michelangelo and Me. She was very, very unique. And up until like her 80s, she lived in this loft in New York, and she was doing more art, with, she used to do marble, and then she moved to different mediums because obviously marble takes a toll on your hands and like working with that. So at older ages, it was more difficult, and it's so heavy. So she was doing a lot more photography and drawing and all these other things. And she was always active. And like she had, one time I was over, she was like in her, I would say like around 83, something like that, 85, I don't remember. And she was like, come, we're going to go meet my lovers. And we go to this coffee shop, and these like 3 men are there, and they're like, hi. What? She was amazing. She would go swimming like 3 times a week, and like apparently was very active. Oh yeah. Elderly intimacy is a thing, very
not
natural.
only that, just like Man, that's the life I want when I'm 83.
I want it now. It's fucking amazing. Doing art all day and like meeting your lovers for coffee and talking about the world and politics. Like amazing.
And that they're all like together. Like all the lovers. Yeah, they're all friends. And just discussing. Yeah.
I think just like, we're adults. What are we like? This is, where are we going with this? How many years together are we going to, like chill. But yeah, so she was an amazing lady, and I don't know, something about her passing, it just made me come back to that place of like, how can I express my creativity and how can I be more myself and allow that to just be.
Yeah.
So, she was amazing.
Yeah, she sounds like an inspiration to me.
She had an interesting life. She went and studied art way before it was okay for women to do that in Europe. And like, she was in Morocco and in Italy and in all these different areas. And she knew like 7 languages. Like she was really amazing.
Wow. Yeah. That's really special that you got to have someone like that in your life.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Hannah Eshel. That's her name.
And
check her out. She wrote a book about herself, of course, and her life story. No, she had an interesting one, but I think she still has things online, or like maybe her artwork is still being sold. I think I'm not sure.
Yeah. Oh, I'll have to look her up. Well, is there a random animal fact you can tell me?
Oh my God, this is such a crazy fact to me. Like just how like nature finds a way. I thought about this immediately when I heard like your other episodes. I was like, oh my God, I have one. So I don't know if you know much about anglerfish. Are you familiar?
I am familiar with anglerfish.
So if you don't know what it is, they had it in Finding Nemo, like down in the depths of the darkness. There was that like...
Yeah, they have the lantern in the front of their
little
face.
Lantern, and they're like fucked up teeth, and they like trap them. And so because it's so pitch black down there, there's no light, right? They're like at the depths of the depths. And it's very rare because you can't see another fish from far away. You don't like... There's limited ability to find each other, so... The males are very small.
Yeah.
And what they do is they kind of swim around looking for females. I don't know if they follow a scent or anything, but once they find one, what they do is they bite them on the side, they latch on, and they start to fuse into them so that all is left is a pair of testicles. And basically they can carry up to like, I don't know, like 5 or 7 different testicles, and they basically reproduce, like whenever they need it, they use whatever is in there. So they just kind of like just swimming around doing their thing, eating fish. And whenever they need to, they use their resources. And I just think that is so amazing and so crazy. And I know relationships like that too. Just a pair of testicles. No, I'm kidding.
Do you think that multiple men, like, or multiple male anglerfish get stuck on there?
Yeah.
So
they could have several testicles on them, just like fused.
And they're just like, I want to use this one today, or
yeah, I'm ready. Let's use this one. That's it.
This one's about to be kaput. Can they cut it off?
Well, they fuse into their like body basically, so they like melt into them, so that really all is left is their point is to reproduce.
Yeah. That's so weird to think that like. The sperm is just traveling within your body to where the sexual organ is.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much. It's like, because they can't, from my understanding, I might be wrong on this, but because their mouth is made to fuse, they're not really looking for food. They're not doing anything besides searching for females.
Yeah. Ooh.
Which is like so intense, but like, you're in pitch black. What are you going to do, you know?
Yeah.
So, and obviously they're like very small compared to her, so she's like way bigger. Mm-hmm. I just think that is such a crazy fact. It's so insane to me.
It's so insane.
The ocean is amazing.
Yeah, it's so, what did they say? The ocean is more unexplored than space?
Which, like, is it? Like,
is that just like
that's always a weird fact to me. Like, it's space.
Yeah.
It's space, like literally. It's space. It's infinite. I don't know. It's a never end. I don't know. It depends on the theory. But like, there's an end to the ocean. It's just we don't have the ability to get there. And, like,
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the pressure alone.
Yeah.
So crazy.
Oh, it's so cool. I don't know. It's amazing. Anyway, that was my fun fact.
Thank you.
Now you'll be thinking about that.
I am going to be thinking about that. I don't want parasitic men.
No, it doesn't work as well for humans.
As part of the show, I'd like to pull out a tarot card for the episode. Because maybe you'll think, hey, this is what I need to hear today, or just something to keep in your back pocket for the future. So I've been using the Universal Fantasy Tarot cards. They've been really fun. By Paolo Martinello. And
Oh, they're beautiful.
oh yeah, like look at that.
Whoa.
So let me just shuffle, and then one card
popped out already.
I'm gonna keep that as a hidden meaning card. We'll see. You get a special 2.
Yay.
So I'm gonna keep shuffling, and then you just let me know when to stop.
Stop.
Okay. And then if you want to just like choose one.
This one. Ooh, the 5 of Cups.
Okay.
Oh. Do I know the 5 of Cups as a different one? Because he's like turning towards the cups versus from the ones that fell. Like towards the cups that are still full, if that makes sense.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, this artist just drew it differently. But
This is very Game of Thrones-y. I love it.
What do you feel from it?
So maybe I'm remembering it differently, but 5 of Cups, right? So that's like emotion and all that. But it seems, so to describe it, should I describe it for your audience?
Yeah.
It's this like very, I don't know what to even call this, like steampunk kind of armor on this person.
It's like fantasy steampunk.
Yeah. Fantasy steampunk, wearing this like amazing armor and facing towards the entrance to, I don't remember where this is for Game of Thrones, like one of there's like a bridge into this like amazing temple kind of castle area. And there's 2 cups next to him, and then behind him there's 3 that have been turned to their side. Yeah. And there's nothing in them. And the 2 that are standing are filled with some kind of golden thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it just seems, it looks like he's turning towards the future kind of thing, or pensive about something.
Yeah. So the description for this one is, even when we lose, we gain the experience of defeat, and it may turn out useful for attaining future victories. So
I think that connects to what I was saying before about losing some people in my life and making those disconnections that have been very eye-opening.
yeah. And definitely where it's like you're learning from those, like cutting people off and then using that for your future experiences. So I feel like that's very fast. We figured it out.
No, but I love that he's this person, he, she, I don't know, but they're facing towards where the cups are next to this person. Like the gains are still next to them.
Yeah.
Like there's still some leftover gains versus, okay, those are gone, done, but they're behind me.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
I remember it as, there's one card that they're like facing towards the fallen cups.
Yeah. Yeah. That's typically how it's drawn.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this one, it's
love
like
that.
next to him.
Yeah.
Or next to them rather than in front of them.
Which is very interesting as well. Mm-hmm. And also it looks like they can just kind of
reach over
and like, okay, I'll drink this too, throw it behind me when I'm done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very available.
Very available. Let's throw this to the side now. So we got a card that popped out.
Ooh, which one?
It's so funny because it actually reminds me of your great aunt. Like,
oh, no way. Look at all the purple.
Yeah.
10 of Wands. And
the fact that it's like an artist, like, yeah, that's so crazy. Is your aunt trying to speak to us, your great aunt?
You would know if she had something to say. She was the kind of person who'd be like, that's not interesting. Let's talk about something else.
Oh my God.
She was great. Very used to living on her own. This is really cool. So there's this artist wearing a lot of blue who's drawing this lady who is pretty naked, and she has a bunch of weapons and feathers and like around her And some cloth that's like on top of her.
Yeah.
10 of Wands is usually some kind of completion, no?
Yeah. I really like this deck because this doesn't read in reverse. So the things that the cards say, I feel like are pretty spot on. And it's like different from other decks that, you know, we use. So the description for this one says, the ability to focus on the results, ignoring all distracting thoughts, is a skill shared by artists and warriors. So I feel like that does relate to the Five of Cups. I probably should have just like had them both together because they kind of are looking the same way.
Yeah, the artist and the
Warrior.
figure. Warrior.
Because he looks like a warrior in the Five of Cups. He's got his armor. I keep saying but they got their armor. We don't know who these people are.
Also, they're watching these, there's like people coming into where this armistead is, or this like castle or whatever it is, and it seems like waiting for something to happen.
Yeah.
And here, there's the action already happening.
Yeah.
The completion. No, water and fire, right?
Yeah. It's like, he definitely, in the Five of Cups, he's anticipating, or they're anticipating, but then the artist is already working.
Yeah, in it. It's very cool.
Very cool. Yeah, maybe it's also saying, like, you're both. And, because you are creative, and, but you are a warrior, and I do feel like it just points out that something that I really admire about you is you are able to focus on like where you want to go and get there, and you can like ignore the distracting thoughts, at least to me. So I don't know if you feel that way.
I don't know. It depends on what we're talking about, but thank you. There's a lot of intrusive thoughts. I don't know.
Yeah. But
yeah, when I have a goal, I have a goal. I actually was talking about this with a mutual friend of ours, that him and I are very similar, that when we make a decision, we make a decision. There's no regret. There's no, like, we just go with it because it's been made. So it's done. And when you just kind of roll with it, even if it doesn't succeed, that was the decision you made at that time of your life with all the information that you had at that time. So there's no regret. Yeah. You just move forward. So that certainty is maybe part of that.
For sure. And I mean, I did talk about your aunt. The Ten of Wands just screamed to me that you're like your great aunt. Yeah. And so I do think there is a correlation there too, of like the card said, artists and warriors share the same thing. And I feel like you and your great aunt probably share the same thing. So I think your great aunt did pop out for this. It was just like, hey,
maybe it was her.
Yeah.
She's like, sup, come meet my lovers.
Yeah. She's like, we're one and the same.
She's a special gal.
Yeah.
Aw.
And you're just as special as her.
I love it. Thank you.
I like that. I like what came out. That's so cool. Thank you so much, Elinor, for being here and talking with me. Is there anything you want to promote, and is there somewhere you want people to find you?
Yes. So I have my website, Elinor, Elinor, LMFT, so licensed marriage and family therapist. So Elinor, LMFT at gmail.com is where you can write me, or just .com to find my website. I'm also providing, just because of everything going on in the world from both ends of the conflict in that area. I know there's a lot going on, but definitely I'm here and to be like an unbiased space to provide. I'm going to do between 1 to 3 sessions that are going to be free for someone who's going through it right now with that. So not only for my own services, but also a free service at this time. If you are going through it and having a lot of trouble, please reach out to me, and either myself or I can connect you with someone that can give those a little bit of free help, so we can give you some skills and maybe connect you with other resources. But yeah, in general, if you're struggling, please talk to someone. You are not alone. We're all going through it in different ways for different reasons, and you have my email now.
Sadly, we are at the end. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoy this podcast, please follow, subscribe, rate, all the things on, Spotify, Apple, or YouTube. You can also follow Tired and Thriving on Instagram at Tired and Thriving, all one word. You can email if you want to reach out, give feedback, or let me know maybe how you've been uniquely thriving at tiredandthriving@gmail.com. Thank you again, and I hope you all have a thriving week. See you next time.